Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption. But he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we also shall reap, if we do not lose heart. There is a story now that has come full circle that everybody is missing. Way back during the final years of the Obama administration, there were sanctions levied against Venezuela. Now, one of the very strange things about this was there was unanimity in Washington, D.C. when Obama did this. No light between the Republicans or the Democrats. They were totally in unison saying that we have to destroy Venezuela. You see, that should have been a giant red flag to a lot of people that something else was going on, but nobody saw it. Everybody wanted to cry corruption on the left, and everybody on the right wanted to cry socialism. Either way, they were in lockstep. Well, guess what? It has now come full circle, and they have had to relent. Why? Well, you see, with gas prices being so high, the big oil companies are making money hand over fist. They've just got to keep finding places to pull it out of the ground. And now with what's going on in Ukraine, they have had to allow some state-run oil companies to begin selling Venezuelan oil. Literally contradicting the sanctions, lifting the sanctions. See, people saw this story and they thought, oh, well, that's socialism. That's what you get. And when you went to the side of the Democrats, like, well, that's what you get when you have corruption. They couldn't see it. They couldn't see it. 6 June 2022, U.S. allows Venezuelan oil exports to Europe. The supplies are expected to make up for Brussels' embargo on Russian oil. Italian oil company Eni S.p.A. and Spain's Repsol S.A. could start shipping Venezuelan oil to Europe as soon as next month. Reuters reported on Monday Washington believes Caracas will not benefit financially from these cashless transactions, and that the money will be used to pay Venezuela's debt, according to the report. The U.S., which has imposed economic restrictions on the Latin American nation, gave the green light to the two companies to resume shipments, Reuters says, hoping that the crude from the sanctioned nation can help Europe become less dependent on Russia. The volume of oil that Eni and Repsol will receive will not be large, Reuters said, quoting its sources, which means the impact on global oil prices will be modest. The shipments will be allowed under a condition that the oil received must go to Europe. It cannot be resold elsewhere. But wait a minute. I thought socialism failed. I thought socialism caused the collapse of Venezuela. Has there been some change in power? No, there hasn't been. They just had to relent because this is karma. Who remembers all the stories of empty grocery store shelves? Who remembers all the stories of shortages? Couldn't get parts for this, couldn't get parts for that. That's why the oil rigs had to be shut down. Because of the sanctions. It wasn't that Venezuela couldn't afford them. Virtually everybody in the world was banned from doing business with Venezuela or selling them anything for any price for an unending amount of time. But now, what do we see? Guess what? That exact thing is occurring right now all across the United States. Don't believe me? Go check out Southern Prepper 1. Over the last about month or so, he has been doing these boots on the ground intelligence reports. An incredibly intelligent thing to do, by the way, where he has groups all over sending him reports of things that they're seeing. And when you listen to what he's saying, it sounds exactly like what we heard coming out of Venezuela 2015, 2016, 2017. But you see, nobody's blaming socialism now, are they? You know, even though The U.S. is an incredibly socialist country and has been for a very, very long time. In fact, the greatest generation, the ones we refer to, the ones being celebrated today, in fact, with D-Day, they were heavy-handed, left-wing socialists. Go look at all of the things that were put into place during World War II. And you were supposed to turn in anybody and report anybody who was earning too much of a profit. See, that was a bad thing. That was a bad thing. Anybody that was selling their stamps, selling their rations, or trying to make a little bit of money, see, they were evil in the 40s. See, over at Florida Maquis Patreon channel, we have been talking about psychological operations and what's really going to happen when shit hits the fan and how it's going to affect people on the ground, personal relationships, and why if you're one of these people that thinks you're just going to do it all by yourself just because you got a gun, you're out of your mind. Some have taken issue with some of the advice that I've given to the ladies in my audience. Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Some have said, Florida Maquis, men only want one thing. We know, we're mind readers. Men only want one thing. Well, what happens when that one thing goes away, you see, because, men are not robots. When things get bad enough and things get difficult enough, you start prioritizing. There's some things that you think we want that will end up being not quite that important, but believe me, wait until they release the prisoners. Wait until it becomes untenable to hold prisoners. It takes a lot of money and a lot of effort and a lot of finance and a lot of connected supply chains to run big prisons. It's only a matter of time now. This is an image from one of the most popular videos I've done, over 1 million views, where I talked about I would not want to be stuck out west or out in the Midwest when this happens. Because there's going to be nothing out here. It's going to be a wasteland. You see, it's summertime now, and everybody sees everything's green and gardens are growing. Well, in a couple months, when things fall apart, and believe me, I'm not the only one saying this. There are people all over. And this is, once again, an incredibly smart thing that Southern Prepper One is doing, detailing and documenting in detail what's happening. And it's truly frightening. It's only a couple months now. They're going to open these prisons. They're not going to be able to feed these guys. They're not going to be able to keep things going. They're going to run out of parts. They're going to run out of stuff. They're going to run out of people to drive the trucks, to cook the food, everything. And I'll tell you what, Katie, bar the door. When these millions of guys get out. And yeah, most of them are bad. There are some in there that are in there for things that maybe aren't so horrible, but believe me, once you spend enough time on the inside, your priorities change. And when these cats get out, you just wait. Ain't gonna be like your survival group. Ain't gonna be like Walking Dead. Ain't gonna be tactical camping. It's gonna be brutal. World War for bread underway, and this is one of the keys that many people miss during a situation like this. People want to fall into the black or white thinking. It's going to be A or it's going to be B. See, there's going to be people who can afford to buy food. It's going to be a much greater inconvenience now than it is then than it is now. But they cover this way down here, and people gloss over it. It talks about how the ports in Ukraine are blockaded. Well, what they've been doing is shipping it overland. Meanwhile, Kiev has been shipping its grain out via the Romanian port of Constanta and overland to Europe, a much less efficient route as far less can be transported at a time. With European countries able to pay more for the crops, smaller quantities are likely to make their way to northern Africa. And leaders from the continent have pleaded with Europe to lift sanctions, which make it more difficult for them to buy food via the SWIFT system. See, that's going to be the reality. It's going to be who can afford it. It's not going to be even Steven everywhere. There are going to be places that have more money that can afford things, and they're going to be closer to the ports, and they're going to buy it up, and they're going to hoard it. And if you're stuck out here in the middle of late November and December when you can't grow nothing, and you can't get anything because everything's clogged up at the ports in California, Texas, Florida, the East Coast, every place I have in green, by the way, the trucks are going to be empty by the time they get anywhere near the Midwest. That's just going to be the reality. Then when the lights go out, watch how fast priorities change. Watch how fast. If you want to do a great study in two different characters, played by the same actress, by the way, making decisions completely differently, go back to season 1 of The Walking Dead and watch. This is Sarah Wayne Caius. Watch the decisions that she makes. I know this is Hollywood, but it's a great case study. The decisions this character makes, she immediately hooks up with Shane, the partner of her husband that she believes is dead, for safety reasons. For safety reasons, she's got a little boy. She immediately makes this decision, whereas this character, same actress, Colony, makes completely different decisions. Incredibly wrong decisions that you would think were right, but they're really totally wrong. And I just wanted to cover this because I haven't covered it in quite some time. Cryptocurrency is meandering now. And it's been meandering right around the 28 to 31 level for a long time. And they're already reporting these people they call hodlers. It's really kind of a hold on for dear life, HODL, hold on for dear life, meaning guys that have bought cryptocurrency that never sell. They only buy more when it's low. These guys are starting to sell. They're starting to get out of it because they're realizing that no matter what else happens, the Fed raising interest rates to try to control the upcoming runaway inflation is going to do nothing but destroy Bitcoin long term. And they can do better things with their money. It's going away. It's going away because it gave people too much leverage over the dollar. In that case, they were right. But the fact that they thought nothing was going to happen when they did this, it was just like the pirates that I described in Black Sails. Eventually, the Spanish will come for their gold. Eventually, England will come and take over. They're not just going to let it be. This is why we train War for the Mind, so that people can see this kind of stuff. $1 US. That's it. $1 US per month. That's all I ask. Lowest allowable level. Even Patreon itself has sent me emails saying, you should really charge $3. You should really charge a minimum of $3. I'm like, nope. Everybody else does, Florida Monkey. You should charge a minimum of $3. I charge $1. I charge $1 US per month, not per video, not per week, fully refundable for 90 days. Even less if you sign up for an entire year. Because it's that important. People get their head straight. People get their mind right. And understand what's coming. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to force people to acknowledge something. That as great as we might think America was, it's not. There's no exception for it to certain rules, certain biblical rules. And what we visited upon Venezuela is now going to be visited upon us. We are going to reap what we have sowed, pardon me. We are going to reap what we have sowed in Venezuela. I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.